Nice one, Cloud Gurus, another set of lessons down. We've said that everything in the Cubiverse revolves around the API server, and all requests to it pass through this admission chain. So a request comes in and it gets passed out to its component parts. This one here is passed out to this, which is essentially asking, can Nigel create deployments in the ACG namespace? Well, step 1 in the chain's authentication. That basically says, okay, before going any further, let's just make sure this really is Nigel. Now, how this actually happens is configurable. Bearer tokens and X509 certs are a simple option, but if you're a bit more enterprisey, you can totally hook into AD and IAM systems using things like OIDC. Well, assuming the authenticator comes back and says, yep, this is Nigel, we then proceed to authorization, and this is the RBAC bit, which I guess from a super high level is always asking, can said user or group perform the requested operations on the requested resources? So what can your devs do, or what can your ops do? And I guess with the ultimate aim being to set users and groups up so that they are locked down to that minimum set of permissions required to do their job. Maybe a bit of a nirvana, right? But hey, there's no harm in aiming, right? Anyway, RBAC's an authorizer and it's stable. And to configure it, we create roles or cluster roles and we bind those to users with a role binding or a cluster binding. So we've got one on the screen here, and this combo says, yeah, user Nigel can indeed create new deployments in the ACG namespace. Magic. Authentication and authorization passed. On to admission control. This, we said, is where we enforce defaults and policies. So maybe you've got your own secure registry and you want to force all images to be pulled from it. Bingo, that's the job of an admission controller. Maybe you want to force that all images are pulled instead of using locally cached ones that can sometimes become stale and actually they can bypass registry authentication. Well, again, that's the job of an admission controller. Well, after that, there's a bit of basic schema validation, and then we're all done. The request gets permitted, and the deployment in this case gets instantiated on the cluster. And that there is RBAC and I guess the wider API admission process. Now, we've said that RBAC's stable, yeah, GA since 1.8, and obviously alpha and beta for a long time before that. But despite being stable, right, you definitely want to take a methodical approach when you're implementing it. I mean, there's no point going in all guns blazing and breaking stuff or locking yourself out. So steady as she goes and test, test, test. And finally here, I just want to say this one last time, right? Kubernetes RBAC is a purely additive model. And don't take that the wrong way, right? I'm not trying to speak down to you. I just want it to be clear, right? Enabling it takes away all permissions. Well, except for some pre-created users and the likes, right? But for regular users, yeah, it takes away all permissions. Then it's your job to explicitly create roles and role bindings to start opening things up. And for the last time, there's no such thing as a deny rule. And that's it. Or it is for what we're covering, right? I mean, there's always tons more. But RBAC's a biggie, right? And you've got enough there to get cracking. Alright then. Next on the cards, well, a bit of a free-for-all to be honest. We're going to cover a few things that we've not covered yet in detail, just to round out your picture. See you there.